because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
A group of lawmakers is headed to Taiwan.
Amid continued aggression from China towards Taiwan, the House Armed Services Committee is making the trip to the country after the Foreign Affairs Committee did so last month. According to the American Institute in Taiwan, Chairman Mike Rogers of Alabama is leading the trip that includes top-ranking Democrat Adam Smith of Washington. The delegation is expected to meet with Taiwan's president and other senior leaders to talk about relations between the two nations, security, trade, investment, and other significant issues. The trip comes after Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with leaders in China and says he made clear the Biden administration's disapproval of aggression towards Taiwan. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
The Congressional Budget Office is estimating that publicly held debt will be equal to a record 181% of American economic activity by 2053. A social media influencer is taking on Prince Harry and his wife in a slander suit.
YouTube star Shallon Lester says she is taking legal action against Meghan Markle for implying that Lester was part of a hate campaign against both Markle and Prince Harry that appeared in the couple's Netflix documentary. Lester also pointed to the couple's failed Spotify deal and the recent comments from company executive Bill Simmons, who called them grifters.
It's defamation, it's slander, it's mischaracterization, and you know what else it is? Misinformation.
Lester claims she was never approached by Netflix for comment despite being included in episode 5 of their documentary. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
The University of Connecticut has a new Husky mascot. Jonathan, 15, is 2 months old and will take over as the official mascot this fall. The school spokesperson says the puppy arrived on campus June 17th. I'm Lisa Lacera. This is Fox News.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Brandon Taylor, the chairman of the Lawrence County Republican Party. I want to welcome you back with us for another hour, as we have each and every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. In the studio with me, I have Lawrence Sutton, our secretary of the Lawrence County GOP. How are you, Lawrence?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. And also across the table from me is Mr. Scott Cepicky, our state representative, District 64. How are you today, Scott?
Doing very well. Doing very well.
Good. We're so glad you're here, Scott. Wanted to welcome you in. And, I mean, we've had a few guests over the last few weeks, and we're thrilled that you will come into a different district from District 64 to come in and speak to us and share some of your thoughts. And, you know, here you are, a pro sports player. I mean, you played multiple sports. And we were just joking around about being in the locker room quite a bit when you were younger, I'm sure. But I guess as we get started off, it's this hour goes fast, and Lawrence knows this. It moves really quick. But one of the questions I have for you and want to start off, I want to give this to you for a few minutes. What has brought you to this point? You've came through pro sports. You've been in business. You've done a banker. You've been what a journey in your life.
Well, yeah, I was originally born in St. Louis, Missouri. Went to private schools. I was, as you know, as you can read, I was very gifted athletically.
Yeah.
My father put me in the best situation he could up in St. Louis. There are 4 big private schools, all boys, and they're all football and athletic factories. And the hope was to get an athletic scholarship. I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Wisconsin. I played football and baseball up there for 4 years as a letterman, and then ended up getting signed by the Cincinnati Bengals and the Minnesota Vikings. I was there for a short time. The NFL stood not for long for me. And then went back to school to finish my degree in history. And that year I was drafted by the Chicago White Sox. I spent 6 years in their minor league system all the way up to AAA with the Sounds. Then got traded to the Twins and ended my career professionally with the Twins. So Minnesota Vikings cut me the last time, and the Minnesota Twins cut me the last time. So I really don't care if we trade Minnesota to Canada. They can trade anything they want.
I like the not for long.
Right.
I get it. Well, I don't know what it stood for me because I never got to go.
No.
So but I'm glad you had that opportunity. What an opportunity that you've had to be involved in those sports. Well, what about your upbringing? I mean, what got you involved from a young man? You mentioned your father briefly, but I mean, we see the sports end of it, but how in the world did you end up in politics?
Well, it's a short story, really. When I was my wife and I lived in Atlanta, Georgia,
Okay.
and we owned a cattle ranch in southeast Missouri around Cape Girardeau, and we were driving 11 hours every week to go to the farm, and we were getting tired of it.
Yeah.
And we happened to be coming through Nashville one day, and we ended up moving to Nashville to cut the distance down. And we moved to Spring Hill, Tennessee, and I had a neighbor there that we were very close to. We even cut each other's grass at the same time and watched football all the time. And I was complaining around 2009, 2010, complaining about the situation in our country.
Yeah.
And it was the time when Ty Cobb was our state representative.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Democrat, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go try to fix this. And my neighbor said, you know what? Go do it.
Wow.
And so we were originally going to run for state house, but not enough people knew me. And so we figured to run for county commission in 2010.
Okay.
And in 2010, I was elected to the Maury County Commission, and my very first meeting there, they elected me chairman. Big mistake. Big mistake. I was the first county commission chairman who was not born in Maury County, who wasn't from Columbia, who was from Spring Hill, and was a Yankee.
Oh, wow.
Didn't go well. Had made some enemies right away, but it was during the recession, right?
Sure.
And we hunkered down and said, look, we are not raising taxes. People don't have any money. We're going to hunker down and make this thing work. And for 4 years, we made it work with a tenth of the revenue that Maury County has right now.
Wow.
A tenth. And so we were doing a very good job. And in 2014, when my term was up, people asked me to run for county mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran for county mayor, and I lost in a primary to Charlie Norman by 114 votes.
Wow.
And I spent the next couple months looking around at people at the grocery store, trying to figure out which 114 people I didn't ask to vote for me.
Okay.
And shortly after that, after I lost that in 2014, Sheila Butt, who was the state representative,
Right.
she came to me and asked me to run for Republican Party chairman.
Okay.
And so I ran for Republican Party chairman, and I served in that role from 2014 to 18. And about in December, I got a phone call. I got a voicemail from Sheila Butt that said she needed to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the time when they were discussing legalizing marijuana up in Nashville.
Okay.
We have this conversation every year now that I'm up there.
Yeah.
But it was about that, and I told my wife, I said, oh, Sheila's called me. Oh, it's probably about medical marijuana. And my wife said, no. You know how women are with women's intuition.
Oh, yeah.
She said, no, I think she's going to ask you to replace her. I said, you're crazy. She'll listen to my wife, right?
Right.
And sure enough, Representative Butt told me at that time that she was going to step down and retire, and she wanted me to fill her spot. And that was in December. Well, you had to pull paperwork and run in a primary, and it was all hands on deck. We ended up winning that primary, winning that election, and then since 2018, I've served in the General Assembly representing District 64, which used to be all of Maury County.
Yep.
But as you know, that's changed.
It did.
So now I just represent the eastern half. So now I represent about 70,000 people who just live basically in the city of Columbia and east of Highway 31. So that's how much Maury County has grown over those last 10 years. And then I was put on the education committee, and now I'm a chairman of education because I believe in my heart that the future of Tennessee is in education.
I agree.
We have got to solve this problem in education, and we have got to get it right, because if we don't, the back end of a lack of education, the gang violence, the teen pregnancy, the incarceration rates, on and on and on, are going to bankrupt our state.
We agree with that.
So that's what my whole focus is, and I've probably been to 32 or 33 districts across the state, urban, rural, suburban. Trying to figure out, is there a magic bullet? Let me tell you, there is none. There is no magic bullet in education. It's hard work. It is teachers standing in front of a classroom,
Yes.
teaching the foundational principles of education,
Right.
and every year building blocks one on top of another until they graduate high school and they have the opportunity to either join the military,
Yep.
career technical, community college, or four-year college.
Right.
Because they have the ability to do the work at all those different things, therefore creating multiple options for our kids.
Right.
And that's a contributing member of society. And in education, that's our goal.
That's
Our goal is to put the prison system out of business.
I agree. I like that. Let me back up just a
Go
little
ahead.
bit. Since you're played a lot of competitive sports,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you feel like that's kind of overlapped into politics? Has that created more of a ferocious candidate, or give you more?
Yes.
Okay.
It is athletics. Well, being a competitive person, I hate to lose.
Okay.
And the hardest thing in my life, one of the hardest things I ever had to come to grips with was when I lost my mayor's race.
Okay.
But it made me refocus, right?
Okay.
What didn't the people like about me? And it had nothing to do with that. It wasn't people were voting for my opponent because they thought they were better. It was because people were voting against me because I wasn't from Murray County,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Right.
That happens.
And so
Yes.
to overcome that, you had to have better ideas. And so I've always focused on listening to other people, right? That's why I go talk to teachers in education. Today, we were in Senator Hensley and I were in Lewis County,
Yes.
talking to teachers and administrators in Lewis County, and then I drove back to Murray County, and I had meetings with teachers in Murray County. I've been to Bradley County. Tomorrow we're going to Davidson County. Pray for me,
Yes.
Right.
okay? Because that's going to be a tough one up there.
It will.
But the competitive nature of people who run for politics, they don't like to lose to begin with.
Yeah.
And you got to be, first of all, got to be a type A personality. You got to be someone that's going to grab the bull by the horns and attack it. Most of the time, when you see somebody who's very passive up there, they don't last very long because people at home get frustrated with them.
Yeah.
People at home want a hard charger.
No doubt.
That's correct.
They want a hard charger.
That's correct.
And so my athletic career was all based on you don't get to play two sports professionally unless you're trying to be the best.
That's correct.
And that's the spillover on my lapel. I don't know if y'all can see it or not. There's a textbook with the name Tennessee on it and number 1 above it. I don't want to be top 20 in education or top 10 or second place, right?
Right.
If you're not trying to be number 1 and doing the things it takes to be number 1, then why are you doing it to begin with?
Right. Well, go ahead, Lawrence.
I was about to say that, and that's a good point. I mean, I've always told my kids, because I have my kids involved in sports too, and the joke is second place is first place loser. And we discussed that. There is no participation trophies.
True.
And that has been the hardest part that Brandon and I have seen as we have delved in and have gotten involved in these things, is seeing how there's so much wanting to compromise, and they feel like we have to compromise. And to me, I don't know how to compromise my values, because my values is, Brandon and I have this saying: we're not politically correct, we're biblically correct. And I never saw Jesus compromise.
Well, if you truly believe in your heart that your position is you believe it's right,
Yeah.
Yes,
compromise means you're willing to take wrong.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So,
Well, I just pulled up the definition to politics while we're sitting here, and I'd read this one of the first shows we've done, and in talking to you, and I picked up on some of your personality. We see your voting record, and I've never really sat down across the table from you and had an opportunity to do this, so I thank you for this opportunity. But the definition of politics is the activities associated with the governance or country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. So it's debate and conflict. And so what we have when we elect a passive representative or a senator is we get someone that cannot go up there and engage in a debate and a conflict. And you've been in it. I mean, for the past few months, there is a lot that's happened in your life. I'm sure you've grown as an individual. You've had to rise to the occasion.
I've aged.
Did it age
I've
you?
aged.
Okay.
I've aged.
And
I
can
normally
imagine
didn't have this much gray hair.
Well, you first came upon even my radar, even though I didn't pay much attention to politics, is when you stood up for us with all the COVID mess. And you were attacked by the left so hard when all you're doing is trying to follow what not only our state constitution said, but as well as the United States Constitution.
Well, that's one of the things, and that's one of the things we try to remind our members, that you swore an oath to a higher calling, which is the Constitution, right?
Yes, sir.
Whether you believe in it or not, you swore an oath to defend it and uphold it. Now, if you don't like it, there are ways to change it.
Right.
Right.
And we do pass constitutional amendments. We've got 3 coming up in about 2 or 3 years. And the people, and you got to go back and look at the founders. The founders were brilliant. They were brilliant because they saw everything we're going through coming.
They did.
They could have chose a democracy to live under, like a true democracy where mob rules.
Right.
But they didn't. They chose a constitutional republic with democratic elections. Right?
That's right.
To have the forethought to know that the corruption of government was going to come, and even at local levels, we know there is corruption in government.
Yes.
And when you put people together with power and money, that's what happens. The hard part is trying to convince people to say no to that, and to stay to the purest values that we all hope to have, based through biblical principles, right, of governance of ourselves, and not using that power to corrupt, which would therefore lead to people being treated unfairly.
Yep.
And for the founders to write all that in, right, and secure it with the Bill of Rights, and knowing, and I have some members in the House that on the other side of the aisle, that I do not agree with on anything that probably comes out of their mouth.
Right.
But the constitutional republic guarantees their rights to say that. Even though I don't like it, even though I don't agree with it,
Right.
I can't pass a bill to take away their rights to do that. And that's very important, is the freedom of speech, right?
That's correct.
You have the right to say things that I don't agree with at all. But then I have the right to come back at you and say, let me tell you why I don't agree with it. And the art of politics is being able to convince more people that you're right than the other person.
That's correct.
And sometimes you've got to stand up on that wall when you're getting shelled and take the abuse and take the beating and not bend or break.
And what we've seen from the left is, but they don't respect that right.
Correct.
That's correct.
What we see, it's cancel culture or whatever you want to call it. It's now, well, we don't want you to have your right to be able to get up and speak. And I think one of the things, it's almost a new approach that we're having to take, in my opinion, from the Republican Party, from politics, from conservative views as a whole, is we're having to take this approach of, we're not dealing with someone that views our rights the same way we view theirs. We have a respect of their rights to be different from us, but they don't return the same respect. As a matter of fact, they want to take that away from us, and we see it on a lot of different levels. And hopefully we'll be able to get into that in just a few minutes. But you have already mentioned education, and so last night at the Lawrence County Republican Party, we had the Beacon Center actually there. I know you're familiar with them, and they actually mentioned you, spoke favorably of you. Very conservative guy. They really like you a lot, so got an A+ rating from them. What I want to talk about though is, what are your views on school choice? When you say, I know you said there's not a lot of options when it comes to education. In our opinion, and we're doing research and we're talking about things that we haven't done yet in the state of Tennessee. So we're throwing some hypotheticals out there, no doubt. But with the hypothetical of school choice coming into an area like Murray County, and which you're very familiar with, Lawrence County. Lawrence County, in my opinion, Scott, is probably where Murray County was 20 years ago. Okay. I'm just kind of putting it out there. We're about to get ready for a boom. We're seeing some of the growth come in. We're getting some of the car manufacturer stuff. We're getting rumors of there's plants, there's factories. I know you're aware of this coming in this area. So it's two front. Number one, with school choice, the number one thing that I think the conversation is going to revolve around is our schools they're attempting to turn them into indoctrination centers if they haven't already done that. And I know we may upset people by saying that, and I want to stand up for Lawrence County. I love Lawrence County schools. I think we have a lot of good teachers. I love our school administrator. I think they're doing a good job. But I know that there are people who would like to indoctrinate more into our school system. So that's one front, the indoctrination. The second part on school choice is it would eliminate the need to start building $60, $70, $80 million, $100 million facilities for schools if we had more in the private sector, churches, nonprofits starting school systems. I'm going to let you speak on this. What do you think?
Well, the first thing about school choice is it's not going to solve the problem of public education. It's not. I mean, because it's a capacity issue. Murray County is a great example. Is if school we're contemplating a charter school.
Okay.
That charter school goes through, it's going to possibly affect the lives of 200 kids. I got 12,000 kids in my school system.
That's right.
I have a million students in K through 12 in the state of Tennessee. At the height, if you look at Florida's school choice, and I break the numbers down, you're talking maybe at the height of school choice in Florida, equating that to Tennessee, I might be able to have 100 to 150,000 kids in school choice places. That still leaves me 850,000 kids that I have to educate in the school system. The way you're going to have to fix education is you got to provide the opportunity for parents to find a better spot. In Murray County, Columbia Academy is on a wait list. Zion Christian's on a wait list. Agathos Classical is on a wait list.
Yeah.
In Williamson County, pick the private school you want. They're on a wait list.
Right.
So even if I get to the capacity issues of allowing more and more charters to open up, which as long as a charter performs at a high level, I'm not for opening charters that are going to perform at the exact same level that I have right now.
Right.
They have to be held to a standard of you must perform at least state average or higher. Because if you're at state average or higher, then you're not an issue for me. I'm focused on the ones that are underperforming. The first thing with school choice is you got to be able to create capacity. So that's the first thing. But school choice and charters or whatever you want to fill in the blank private are not going to solve the educational crisis in Tennessee. We have to go attack that at its home front, which is the educational system. We've passed, in the last 5 years, we probably passed 6 or 7 major pieces of legislation dealing with the teaching of critical race theory in our schools, diversity, equity, inclusion, making sure that boys can't play girls' sports, on and on and on. We are pushing education towards a place where it was 40, 50 years ago. Basics and foundational principles. But you have to be willing to get up on that wall and fight that battle. I've taken a lot of heat on some of the education things that I've proposed, and that's okay.
You have.
It's okay. I will continue to fight for the principles that I believe are right. And when the people of my district believe it's time for me to go to the House, they will signal that for me and tell me it's time to go to the House. That day I don't think is here right now. I think we're still fighting that battle.
We are.
As we have more and more people move to Middle Tennessee that are from the Californias, the New Yorks, the Pennsylvanias, the Ohios, they may be coming here in their mind of what it means to be a Republican. But it's based off of being a California, an Ohio, a Pennsylvania, or a Michigan Republican. We have to teach these people. We have to welcome them here. And we have to teach them and let them understand what it means to be a Tennessee Republican. They're not the same as those other states.
That's correct.
And, we are going to continue to see more people come here. It's going to put more pressure on our school system. I agree with you. Having school choice and charters coming in saves the taxpayers from building $100 million schools.
Right.
But we still have to go into those schools and defend those public schools and make sure they're teaching our kids the things that we want them to teach. Now, I agree with you. There are teachers out there that don't share the same values we share.
Sure.
And that's fine. But with a educational crisis of teachers, then those districts are stuck with having to choose those teachers to teach in the classroom that may or may not represent our values as Tennesseans. We have to figure out, and that's what we're trying to figure out, is how do we create a greater pipeline of teachers coming from our educational prep programs that are trained in how to educate our kids, that are going to educate our kids in the values that we believe, so that when Lawrence County says, I need a new math teacher in elementary school, I have 50 applications for it. Now Lawrence County is choosing the person that best represents the community's values to teach in those school systems, which means those issues with CRT or indoctrination or diversity, equity, inclusion, those start to wane because we're hiring people that believe in the community standards.
Well, let me back up a little bit. So on the charter schools, now the charter schools and the school choice, to me, and I know they kind of fall under the umbrella, but with school choice, one of the directions I really want to see the state go is with education savings account, with the ESA. Now, that's not going to be a charter school, and that's going to be different. And you're exactly right. There are a waiting list on these schools. But their tuitions, we talked to one last night. We had one at our Republican Party meeting, tuition for a school here in this county, and I mean, they're pretty much at capacity as well. It's the growth that's coming in, and people with money are moving here. Okay, people with good jobs and they want a brighter future. They're moving to the state of Tennessee, which is a good thing. But their tuition here in the county was, correct me if I'm wrong, $2,200.
$2,300.
$2,300. Okay, so we're looking at an education savings account right now where it would be set up at $8,200 for the state. So that would be $8,200 going to that parent. Now, so you do have, CA in Columbia. You have CA that's at capacity. You've got Zion Christian Academy. You're talking about these schools that are at capacity. But if you were to take, and just on a business sense of it, if you were to take and say, okay, instead of giving this $8,200 to the public school system of Murray County, and the school system's still getting, and the way I understand this, is $2,000 even after that. So it's not robbing the money. They actually get $2,000 for a student that doesn't show up.
For another 2 years.
Okay, 2 years on.
Two
And that's the way it's written right now.
Right.
Because it's in 3 counties.
Right.
Now I will tell you, we got the numbers yesterday. The numbers yesterday on those 3 counties for enrollment in charter schools in those 3 counties. Have you seen the numbers on this?
I've heard they're pretty poor.
It's 4,000 students for this year.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty solid considering they were expecting 500, I think.
True.
So that's showing that even in Memphis, Shelby County, Davidson County, and one of the things is, well, how are you going to get the kids to school? How are you going to do it? They're making it happen. The parents are actually making it. And those are testing in. The charter schools are where you test in to get into the schools, and they're having to make a grade to get in there. Of course, we know that. I'm just saying that for folks that don't really realize. But if we were to have that ESA, Education Savings Account, come through in the state of Tennessee, and you're putting $8,200 in the hand of each parent, and they could go to an accredited. Now, I'm not saying you're just going to hand it to someone and they go to Billy Bob's high school on the hillside out here.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an accredited where they are doing the standardized testing. What is your opinion on that? What do you think about that for the future of Tennessee?
Well, I would tell you right off the bat, I wouldn't shortchange yourself with the $8,200. Because with the new TISA funding formula, you could have students who live in poverty districts or are economically disadvantaged, may have a couple learning disabilities. They could be receiving for that student upwards of $14,000, $15,000 for their education. So that was one of the things that Governor Lee did. The reason why we went to the new funding formula was when we were having this whole debate in Nashville about the educational savings account, and I would ask it myself about the vouchers, and I'm like going, how did you come up with that dollar amount? I mean, where did you come up with the $8,200 from? How do you create that? And nobody really gave us a square answer on it.
I haven't seen that either.
There is no answer.
Okay.
It's just they just pulled it out of the air. And so what the new funding formula that goes into effect this year, Lawrence County is going to receive more money for education based off of just their students and their individual needs, because what it takes to educate you may be different for me if I have learning disabilities or I come from a different family. And so what we've established is now we know, no matter where school choice goes, we know exactly how much money to send with that student based off of their educational needs. It may be $8,000, it may be $9,000, maybe $14,000. But that student, where they go to their destination, that facility is going to receive enough money that the state has deemed to educate that student, because everybody's different. And so that was one of the reasons why we did away with the BEP formula, the old funding formula, because it was just a cut amount. Well, some students require more help.
Absolutely.
And so now we have the flexibility to implement a school choice program. A true school choice program where if you want to go to a public school, go to public school. If you want to go to a private school, go to a private school. We know how much to send with my son Gabriel. We know how much to send to that private school or that public school, wherever to go.
Right.
So now we've laid the groundwork to create the flexibility of the system.
Right.
Now we have to look at the capacity. How do we create capacity in a short time period to meet all of the educational needs? And I know what's going to happen is these charter schools are going to open up, and they're going to probably pay more than the public schools, and they're going to start to steal teachers, right?
Right.
Okay, well, now we got to backfill those public schools, right? That's why we've got to have the pipeline so that we don't start backfilling these public schools with bodies. We start backfilling these public schools with quality teachers.
So do you believe that if we were to see the ESAs come forth, you think it would be pay raises for teachers?
Probably. because it's going to become competitive because there's such a tight market on teachers right now. We've talked, I think, in Murfreesboro in May at their educational prep program, they graduated 6 teachers. 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No. And so a lot of it has to do with money, right?
Sure. I mean,
Right.
And teachers out there, look, if you're listening, I hear you. I know you can go into the private sector and make more money and pick the topic you want to do, right? Pick the job you want to do.
Right.
What we have to figure out, and teachers are full of empathy, right? They emotionally latch on and work with their students because they have an emotional tie to them.
it takes a special person. To be
It
a
does, and I don't have that kind of empathy. Trust me.
Me neither.
I'm a bull in a china shop. You give me a problem, I'm going to attack it and solve it.
Right.
Teachers have to have the patience to work with these students over time.
Agree.
A small, incremental, step-by-step approach to success is what teachers are accustomed to, right? Not a radical change. And so, even if we had full-on school choice or vouchers, right?
Right.
I'm not going to have a million kids in that program because there's just not going to be the capacity. What they did in Florida, and Florida was pretty successful with school choice and overturning the apple cart of public education, was they did start to see some exodus. And it made the public school system come to grips with, we got to compete.
That's what I want to see in
We got to
Tennessee.
compete.
Yeah.
And so what you do is you use the opportunity of school choice for a better environment for these teachers and for these students to create the leverage to get public schools to understand that we have to compete. It's not that, and I don't know what your budget is, but our budget in Tennessee is $14 billion in education.
Sure.
That it's not, it doesn't matter what I do, I got $14 billion showing up every year. Now is, I may continue to lose students, so my portion of that $14 billion may go down, which means it makes it more competitive. Now we get people competing not only for the students, but competing for the revenue of education. Education is a huge business.
Oh, it is.
Huge business.
It is.
And, the pencils, the paper, the computers, the desks, the buses. fill in
Even the
blank.
employers. I mean,
Everything.
A lot of your counties, the largest employer is the school system itself.
It is. And so you start talking about, and not everybody can be a teacher. I can't be a teacher.
No.
I can be a coach.
Right.
But I can't be a teacher, right?
Right.
I don't have the patience for it. And I was, when I was younger, I was a substitute teacher, and I'm like, this is frustrating to me, right? But through time, through the voucher system or the school choice system or ESAs or whatever you want to call it, this is the ability for education to work together, both in the private and public sector, to understand that we have to turn out a better product. Did you know that we have the highest remedial coursework in our 4-year colleges and community college ever recorded in Tennessee?
This year.
Right now.
Wow.
What was it pre-COVID? Do you know the number?
I do not know. But
Because I know COVID's had an impact on it.
So so I had to run a bill.
But
this
on all
year.
the states it has, though.
Well, I had to run a bill this year that enabled our 4-year colleges to do co-remedial coursework.
Okay.
Because they were having the kids that wanted to go to UT, they couldn't qualify because they had to take remedial math, so they had to go enroll in Mississippi State, and they couldn't enroll in UT, right? Our graduation rate in our community colleges is roughly about 42%. That's free college, folks.
I know.
And it's even worse. Our 4-year colleges and institutions that track their graduation rates, well, they base a bachelor's off of 6 years, not 4. The graduation rate is 27%.
27%.
So
Out of 6
27%
years.
on the graduation rate.
For 6 years enrolled in college. So I wonder why college is so expensive now. Because you're going 6 years.
Right.
Well,
We got football players.
These numbers they're almost hard to believe.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you say free college. So a couple of things, and really what I want to do is I'm trying to educate myself, and I hear a lot of people talking about it. But if we had we're talking about at capacity, but I believe if we're looking at it at just what we have right now, of course you're going to be at capacity. But I've already talked to people in this county that are willing to start schools in their churches, in nonprofits, and get it going. And if they had that, if you take a school right now that's currently running at a tuition, and I want to say this school has better than 100 kids enrolled at the one that we're talking about.
Oh no! They may have 30 or 40.
Okay, a smaller school.
Yeah, they're very small.
But they're making it happen with a $2,300. If you give them the budget that they had, and we see this over and over again, so I'm conservative.
We
Oh,
see this over and over
they
again.
could
Hand the
expand.
same budget to the private sector and watch what they do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that if we have a school that's failing as a state, we just throw a bunch more money at it. And we throw more money at it. We throw, even you were just talking about just now, and I'm not having a problem with trying to make things better, but we're going to pay more for the kids that maybe at risk of dropout or at areas where their family's at risk, low income areas, and we're trying to throw money at the situation. And I'm not sure that it's going to help. We don't see the results turning. That's what I'm trying to say. After you keep doing it, you get a pattern. To do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result is the definition of insanity.
So,
and I feel like it's kind of we're caught in a rut.
So one of the reasons why it doesn't turn is because we're stuck in the educational reform mode. It's the next idea, the next product, the new way to teach math, the new way to teach reading. And so what happens is we get bogged down with more and more money on the back end of looking at all these different programs that are coming down the pipe because every time we get a new governor, what do we get? We get a new commissioner of education.
That's right.
And they want to put their stamp on their education program. And so we go in a different direction, right?
Right.
Commissioner Swin has just left. We have a new commissioner coming in. She's going to want to put her stamp on it. If the states like Tennessee that are in a perpetual state of education reform, the cost of education keeps going up, up, and up.
Right.
And our results keep staying the same.
Right.
You've got to get out of the education reform business. You got to say, this is what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to teach the kids, and we're going to do it over and over and over again.
Well, let me ask you this, and we'll move on to something else. Last question on it, unless you've got something else, Lawrence. In the next upcoming year, when we go back into January, you guys go back into session, do you foresee anything coming that will address school choice? Do you think something's going to come out of that where we could see some school choice? We've got three with the three counties right now. I think Knox County almost flipped, but it was kind of wishy-washy on that one. It's gaining support. It's gaining traction. What do you see?
I think what will happen is, like you said, there's more kids taking advantage of it now because it was held up in court. Once we start to see data back, right? Are these kids going from a bad situation going to a different situation, and what is their academic outcomes? Once we start to see the data that we're having success doing this,
Sure.
I think it'll gain steam, right?
Sure.
I think what we've done is we said, okay, we're going to try to do this.
Yep.
We put our big toe in the pool, and we're going to see what happens. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are detractors that are going to try to skew this so that it's not successful. We've tried to give it the best chance we can to succeed. That's why we've given it 3 years to get out and get data for us. The most important thing I need to see is, am I taking a child that was behind, we're giving a better choice, they're going to that choice, and they're having a better outcome.
Right.
Because we're in the better outcomes business, right?
That's right.
We're not in the same business because I can stay the same and not have any school choice, and we're right where we are. What we know is this. When we told third grade retention, right? When we put out there that, hey, we're serious about third grade, and if your student doesn't perform in third grade, they run the risk of being retained. Well, the one thing we did was we engaged the parents in third grade. Trust me, my phone rang. Right? And people are like going, this is unfair. And we're like, well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, your child has to read. And on the test, they're showing us they're not reading. Now, whether you believe the tests are good or bad, we've all gotten to this point in life taking tests. We've all been evaluated every day of our lives. Your radio show is being evaluated all the time.
Every day.
We go through evaluations and tests our entire life. So this is where my empathy doesn't come in. I hear people say that my children are bad test takers. Well, they better get over it.
That's right.
Because you're not going to get to the higher levels of education without being a decent test taker.
That's correct.
You're going to have to be. And so, I think one of the things, and Kirk Haston from Perry County, he's one of the chairmen of education. He's on the opposite side of me on admin. He said something very, very insightful. He said, when did we put such a low expectation on education? I don't remember that bill passing. Do you guys?
I don't either. No,
so
I don't.
Why Lawrence County High School, right?
Right.
Are you guys okay with them winning half their games?
No, we want to win some games.
Right. And so what will happen is if you don't win in sports, they replace you.
Yeah.
But we've taken this malaise in education that, 70% of our kids are just not going to read on grade level.
Yeah.
Well, who passed that bill?
Right.
And if we do, let's repeal it. Because we need to be about excellence in education. Josh Heupel, Nick Saban, fill in the blank, right?
Right.
They're expected to win them all.
That's right.
Well, we expect every kid to be educated. to the level that they can have opportunities with either a TCAT center, a community college,
Right.
four-year college, or how about this? Serve your country in the military.
That's right.
Right.
Did you know that 92% of our kids who join up in the military can't get in because they can't pass the physical, the drug, or the written test?
Wow.
And all they want to do is serve our country. And they got to tell them no.
Right.
We got to change this.
We
Wow.
do. We do.
So going back and I guess not going back, but changing topics here.
Sure.
Would really like to discuss and get your thought process on what's happening with the special session, because this is something that we are hearing every day, and frankly, people are mad about it. I don't know of many people. I'm sure they exist that are in my orbit that I haven't heard one person say, hey, we need to have more gun laws. We have so many gun laws currently now, and we can't even enforce those.
Right.
But kind of walk me through what you're looking at with the special session, and what can we as citizens do to make sure our voices are heard, not from someone like you or our Kip Capley or Clay Doggett, but other people that might be on the fence. And which I don't understand, because the devil owns the fence.
Yes, he does.
So what can we do?
So let's first everybody understand that this covenant thing was a tragedy.
Yes,
Okay?
absolutely.
It was a tragedy, and hindsight is always 20/20. And there are probably telltale signs in this individual's past leading up to this that would have signified this is going to be a problem, right?
Right.
The problem is I got to have that manifesto, I've got to have that toxicology report, and then get testimony from law enforcement, from mental health professionals, and from medical doctors to give me the state of mind that this individual was going through. And then I need to look at the process. How did they procure their guns, right? Well, if they did it legally, she did not, or he, whatever it is.
No, it's a woman.
Right,
I mean, let's say what it
She
is.
did not-
It's a girl.
She did not commit a crime in purchasing the guns.
No.
Right?
That's correct.
So
That's
she
correct.
was a law-abiding citizen up until the moment she squeezed a trigger and shot the window out.
That's correct.
So there's a movie out there with Tom Cruise called Minority Report.
I know where you're going
Pre-crime,
with this.
right?
Yes, pre-crime.
It seems like if we start going down the red flag law, right, we're getting into pre-crime. You know what? I don't like what you said. I think you might do something, or you might break the law. Therefore, I'm going to go tell law enforcement, and they're going to take away your constitutional right. And then we'll see later on if you've committed a crime.
Right.
So here's what I look at, and I'm a numbers guy. Okay, I look at numbers and I study the numbers. What I see is this: it is the problem is these gun-free zones, and I saw a study, very recent study, and it was over a 66-year period. The study was done, so we're going back a long time, even before we had what we thought were mass shootings. But we found out that over 98%, I believe 98.4% of all mass shootings are in gun-free zones.
True.
So when I see numbers like that, Scott, I'm like, to me, it is a no-brainer. Why are we continuing to perpetuate something when we have the gun-free zones?
So I'm 56 years old. I can tell you that the world that I grew up in does not exist anymore.
That's correct.
Does not exist anymore.
That's correct. We agree.
The era of personal responsibility and law-abiding citizens, and when the police say stop, you stop.
Right.
Right. Those days are gone.
Right.
You can always refer back to the old sitcom Happy Days, right? Those are gone. We're in a new world right now. That was one of the reasons why we pushed hard on that governor's school safety bill, right? We're in a day and age that we have to harden our school facilities. They are too soft right now, and people are choosing. We are probably going to see in the manifesto that the reason why she chose that target was it was a soft target.
It was a soft target, absolutely.
When you look at the Columbine shooting and the shootings in Miami, they're all the same, right?
Right.
They have a congruent theme that says, I'm going to go somewhere where I know I can inflict the most damage before I commit murder by police or suicide by police, right?
Right.
So we've passed the school safety bill, the ballistic tape. If Covenant would have had ballistic tape on the glass, she'd have still been shooting holes in it and would have been kept outside. And time kills shooters.
Yes.
They've got to get in, they got to get it over with, and then they wait for the police to show up.
This is true.
So the ballistic tape is a step in the right direction to make sure the glass doesn't shatter. The cameras, the locks, the training, right? SROs in every school, they work.
Yes.
You've got bad guys are always stopped by a good guy with a gun.
And see, and that brings up another point. Like, one of the things that we have, what would be considered a quote-unquote gun-free zone, is our court systems. Why don't we have mass shootings in our court systems?
Because you have bailiffs with guns.
That's correct. But if you have anybody, as far as a lot of crime and people that are maybe pissed off at the system, it's going to be in a courthouse.
Right.
But I mean, I can't remember. I mean, I'm sure there has been, but I can't remember.
It's very rare, and it usually ends very badly.
That's correct.
So, we have to continue to, we had a bill that was in our education committee that we literally were getting lobbyists opposing in our committee. And we fought it through to where teachers could go and get training. They could take the same courses as deputies on how to train on how to use a firearm.
Right.
They would go through the background check. They would go through a mental evaluation. They would go through active shooter training, so they were certified. And then the sheriff and the superintendent would sign off on those individuals, and they could carry guns in our schools.
Right.
Okay. Now the argument is, well, what if a kid wrestles one away? I said, well, okay. Whenever you have a losing argument,
right,
you always argue the extreme.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, we're not talking about a normal person. Yes, my Daniel, who's a sophomore, who's 6'5", 290 pounds, and Miss Jones was the teacher who was carrying, and she was 5'2", 110 pounds. Yes, Daniel could physically probably take the gun from her.
Sure.
But guess what? That same student that would be that desperate, and here's my argument back to him. That same student that is that desperate to go and try to take a gun from a teacher probably will find a gun out and bring it in school anyway.
Well, what you see is, yes, that one student could do that, but how many students are going to get up to subdue that person when they try it?
Right.
Right?
I would think a lot.
Right. We see it on airlines all the time, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Some individual gets unruly, and it's not the stewardesses or the flight attendants, I should say, that stop the person. It's normal citizens that get up and say, sit down.
That's
Yes.
right.
Right?
That's right.
And if you don't sit down, you have 5 or 6 people jump on this person and subdue them.
That's correct.
So it's the self-responsibility coming back into our society.
Right.
That we're going to self-police ourselves to make sure that we all follow the same rules. I think, we are not going to be able to go back. We're going to have SROs in every school. We're going to have active shooter training so that the parents in the schools and the law enforcement knows what's going on. I think, in my opinion, that I would vote yes to let teachers arm themselves as long as they go through the necessary training,
Sure.
the psychological evaluations, the background checks, and they understand what it means that if you draw your weapon, you are responsible for wherever that bullet ends up.
Absolutely.
So make sure that you are comfortable with carrying, because you may be called upon one day, and one would argue, if they had a SRO on duty that day, that maybe we had a different outcome at Covenant.
I would tend to think so.
Right. But even if we didn't, those students and those teachers would have had a fighting chance.
Yes.
Well, we know this much, that in the manifesto, it would have said that there's an armed guard there.
Yeah.
And the manifesto would have been different.
And
if
so
we'd have had SROs.
And so what would have happened is it wouldn't have been a soft target. It would have been a different target.
Well, on gun rights, okay, so we're on this topic, and
Sure.
I know you're pro-Second Amendment. You're sitting with two pro-Second Amendment guys, so you're in good company. But, when we talk about that, the Founding Fathers you mentioned, when they instituted and sat down and put thought into our Second Amendment and our gun rights, they weren't just coming back from a hunting trip.
True.
No.
They were just coming back from a Revolutionary War.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we have to make sure we maintain our gun rights. So we are going to have to take steps as a society to make sure that we protect our freedoms. Okay?
Right. Be careful who you elect.
And we have to protect our
You
freedoms.
darn straight. Elections have
matter.
consequences.
Yes.
Well, the thing, and you go back to the founders, right? And I'm a history major in
Good.
college. The founding fathers didn't say you have the right to bear a musket
That's right.
That's correct.
or swords.
Arms.
They said arms because they understood technology.
That's right.
Yes.
That things are going to change where if we put a limitation, if they would have wrote in the Constitution under the Second Amendment that you have a right to bear a musket,
Yep.
what would we have everyone in our country having right now? A musket.
That's correct.
But they had the forethought. Now, should people have fully automatic weapons? No. But if you go through the background check and you make sure that you can take responsibility for that weapon,
Right.
then you can have it. But it doesn't. We don't put limitations on the weapons that we allow our people to get, as long as they go through the background check to make sure they can attain them. Because we have laws to make sure we have. Trust me, we have tons of laws to keep guns out of felons' hands. Are felons going to follow the law?
No.
Hence the word felon.
That's
Right.
correct.
And so it doesn't matter what law you pass for gun control. It doesn't matter because law-abiding citizens will obey the law.
That's correct.
Felons and criminals won't.
That's correct.
So all you're doing is you're putting your law-abiding citizens at a disadvantage.
That's the way we see
And the
it.
whole emphasis behind the Second Amendment was to level the playing field.
Well, it's not only level the playing field against a felon, but it's also to level the playing field against our own government.
Against government, because they knew what could happen when the government gets too much power.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong with you being a history major, but wasn't it Ben Franklin when he was asked what did they pass? He says it's a republic if you can keep it.
That's right. Because they just got done fighting one of the most powerful militaries in the world.
In the last 2 weeks, I have met 2 history majors that were just out of college. Okay, I met 2, and in my job in the world I'm in, I get to meet a lot of folks. But I met 2, and I asked them this question. They said, "Well, I'm a history major." I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I asked both of them the same question. Neither one of them can answer the question. I'm just going to see if you can answer the question.
There we go.
Okay. He's like, "Oh, this is going to be a tough one." I don't think
He'll
it's that
get it.
tough. Who was the single most influential person that ever lived on the face of the earth?
Oh, Jesus.
There you go.
I
I
could
knew.
not answer the question.
Right.
And I looked him in the face and I said, "I asked you the question to see if you can answer it. And now the real question behind the question is, why didn't they teach you that? Even if you're an atheist, even if you don't believe, even the single most influential human that ever lived on the face of the planet was Jesus Christ."
Right.
And so I'm just letting you know you were a history major. You didn't graduate 5 years ago, so we see how far the education system's
Well,
changed.
I got the gray hairs to prove it.
You got the gray hair through.
So, you bring up, and this whole thing about the special session that we were talking about is, and we've expressed this to the governor and his staff, that anything to do with guns is a non-starter. It's just not, right? We are Tennessee, right?
That's right.
So we're not going to go there. And now the left's not going to like that. And they're going to be there. And they're going to be there to voice their displeasure with us. I'm sure they will know who I am.
Well, Scott,
And that's
guess
fine.
what? We're going to be there too.
And that's what's important. And your listeners out there, if you were here for the income tax battle, the reason why the state income tax didn't pass was because the people of the state said no.
Right.
No. This special session, now this is my 5th one. Before I arrived in 2018, the state in its entirety had 4.
Ah.
I've had 5 already.
Just under Governor Lee.
5. Now, we've had COVID. We've had some issues pop up.
Right.
But I've had 5 already. So I'm used to this kind of stuff. This is normal operating procedures for me.
Right. But it shouldn't be.
But if you don't take possession of your state, then you're leaving it to the will of 99 individuals.
So here's the thing, and
And by the way, we all agree there are different flavors, or there are different colors of a Republican.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
So,
But that's one thing I want to emphasize what you just said. If you do not take ownership, I want everybody that's listening to that, that was one of the most powerful things that I've heard just now, was we have to take ownership of what our state's going to be moving forward.
it's your state.
It is.
I mean, I just work for you.
You know
we
what?
appreciate that.
Yes.
We appreciate
And-
that tone that you're taking.
And the thing you have to remember is, if you, as a citizen, I'm not your representative, right?
But you represent our state.
I represent 7 million Tennesseans.
That's correct.
When we have major bills on abortion or boys playing girls sports or guns, right?
Right.
My constituents don't call me. They know how I'm going to vote.
Yeah.
That's correct.
If you have to think to yourself, I wonder how my representative is going to vote. You need to take possession of your state.
That is a great way to look at it.
Because if you don't know how your elected official is going to vote, then they haven't done the things to give you the confidence in them of how they're going to vote.
We're down to the last couple of minutes.
It goes fast.
And
It does.
It flies by. And so we're down to the last couple of minutes. How many would you like to see turn out as far as Republicans? How many would you like to see turn out there for the August 21st special session? In your mind, what do you think?
We're being told right now that there'll be upwards of probably 10,000 people there.
Okay.
So, Scott,
This is going to be a
And
major
we're not
battle.
talking about Republicans.
We're talking about people, and out of that 10,000 that are going to show up, probably 90% of them will be from outside the state.
well,
Wow.
we need to stop that, number one, because
And remember this, there's only so many people that can get into Cordell Hall.
and
And so many people can get into Capitol, and that's it, which means you're going to be outside the Capitol with people from outside the state that do not believe in the things we believe in Tennessee and absolutely hate you.
And we've been told they've been paid to be there.
That's right.
But see, I want to bring up a point on that too, and something that Governor Lee is that we want to get to him is that he is going to own this, number one, whatever happens. Number two, why can't we stop people that are coming from out of state? Why can't we stop them from going in? Why can't they have to show their Tennessee driver's license in order to get in there?
Well,
because these people don't belong here. They don't make our rules.
Because Tennessee is a free state. And we believe in freedom.
We do.
We believe in our Constitution. We believe in fighting for the Republic. Doesn't matter where you come from, you are still an American.
Right.
No matter what happens, we're all Americans.
Well, I want to say thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
This show belongs to the Lawrence County Republican Party. Lawrence, thank you for all the hard work you do. You put in behind the scenes. My name is Brandon Taylor. I'm the Lawrence County Republican Party chairman. I want to thank everyone from the Lawrence County Republican Party. We are the party. We kneel for the cross. We stand for the flag. And if you're not coming to our meetings, every fourth Tuesday we meet at the Lawrence County Courthouse in the upstairs large courtroom. This is a great country. It's a great place to live. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so thrilled that you drove down to be a part of this show today. I can't thank you enough.
My
Please
pleasure.
come back.
My pleasure.
Please call in, talk to us on the show. Let us know what you see going on out there. We will be seeing you on August 21st. To all of our listeners, be ready to join up with us. We are going to be there. We're making plans. We're going to be announcing meetings. We're going to be announcing times we're going to be coming together. This is a great country. We've got to take a stand, and we've got to take it back. It belongs to us, and I'm glad you said that, and we just appreciate
This is WDXE, W287AA, and W237FD Lawrenceburg. Broadcast services of